Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Starlight Glimmer here once again, and I am back for the likes of the Maxi Toys videos. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Mario vs. Donkey Kong as a remake for the Nintendo Switch. So last time, we've essentially fully begun the forms of the Plus worlds by going into World 1 Plus, which appears to be Mario Toy Factory, in addition to that with World 2 Plus, which appears to be Donkey Kong Jungle Plus. And all in all, we actually did those worlds no problem, no too many death situations for the time being, until for later on. So today for this video is about the fact that we're going to be continuing things on and move on to World 3 Plus, which by the looks of all that stuff though, we're about to be going into Fire Mountain Plus. So exponentially speaking though, we can able to actually just tackle for not only for this world, but exponentially once we get to World 4 Plus, something tells me we're about to be going back into Merry Mini Land, except the fact that it's going to be Merry Mini Land Plus. So because of that, hopefully we'll come across into that once we're completely done with the forms of World 3 Plus. So yeah, let's get this world started, shall we? So for those of you probably wondering, yes, today's date of course is the March the 10th today, in some cases in 2024 today, and happy Mario 10 Day everybody. Get it about the fact that we are now on March the 10th, so if you're trying to combine March and 10, and if you combine those two things together, it actually makes Mario, which as a result, the good thing about this as well, is about the fact that we're actually going to be still playing through Mario vs. Donkey Kong on the Mario 10 Day, which that makes it a perfect opportunity to able to play a Mario game on that specific day. Although, I was trying to able to play some more Mario Kart 8 Deluxe today, but unfortunately though, due to time constraints, I don't feel like I was trying to able to participate in it for just yet. Oh yeah, in addition to that, happy Mother's Day everybody for those of you who lived in the UK, and suffice to say as well about the fact that it looks like the Oscars is going to take place in June forms of today. So I was expecting to try to able to mention about the forms of the Oscar winning nominations for specific films during that time, but then again no, it's probably best if we let Maxi will mention more about it, or potentially speaking if Coco Bandicoot will also mention more about it, if they're going back onto the forms of not only Sonic the Hedgehog 2006 for Maxi's sake, and as far as I'm aware for Coco Bandicoot, that she's now going to be moving on to the forms of Klonoa 2, Lunatic's Veil, for the sake of the forms of Klonoa Fantasy Reverie series. So, everything else will be a lot more potential for this point. So, oh jeez, I'm gonna have to dodge this Firebird right there by simply ducking, and let's just make sure we don't let the Mini Mario get closer to this particular Sniffet toy right there. I suppose I should probably forgot to mention about this potentially speaking, is that throughout the course of the forms of not only in Fire Mountain, but also say applies with Twilight City as well, I believe both of those worlds, some of these music have been replaced, which I'm not exactly sure why certain musical pieces have been replaced for the sake of the forms of compositions, or perhaps even maybe it's because of something else. Although it's kind of difficult to tell, because I haven't exactly thought about the forms of the actual cut content for the sake of this remake. So, oh boy, we've met again with the forms of this particular World 3-3 Plus, especially because you have to rely on that specific timing with that particular jump right there. But thankfully it's a lot more easier this time around, because thankfully though, with the specific movements, and on top of that, those Plutterboos, or these fireballs rather, are actually going to a bit of a slower speed or something, but regardless of everything else though, we did somehow complete this level no problem this time. So at the very least we did somehow manage to accomplish that, unlike this very schizophrenic difficulty on the original Game Boy Advance version because of the strict timing thing you have to put up with. So, but anyway, so, as I mentioned this before, is about the fact that today's date, of course, is the March the 10th today, in some cases in 2024 today, and what I've noticed as well, is about the fact that, remember what, I believe what I said this before, I guess, is about the fact that we're expecting to able to get ourselves Princess Peach Showtime demo. As it turns out, I was correct, because no matter what though, that it wasn't until sometime in 7th of March, if I was assuming correctly, that Princess Peach Showtime demo has recently came out on the Nintendo eShop. And what I've noticed is about the fact that despite the fact I haven't exactly tried out the demo just yet though, because I'm still waiting for the full game to be released, because obviously I've already pre-ordered that game. And it's also worth noting for is that by that time, once we get to the forms of sometime in May, maybe it's a possibility I can probably able to start to be able to pre-ordering Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble once that game's gonna come out for the Nintendo Switch on the 25th of June. So potentially speaking is about the fact that we got ourselves some pretty cool you know, fruition for the sake of the forms of trying to pre-ordering stuff for the sake of time. So anyway, so let's just go ahead and activate the blue switch now. So just in case we can able to let Mini Mario obtain that particular red present, and that should be good to go. Thankfully, the plus worlds, including with the forms of the expert levels coming up, those levels are going to be super duper short to complete. Especially because, you know, relatively speaking, I was about the fact that we go into bite-sized level layouts, like level 3-4 for instance, although despite the fact that you do need to able to think carefully enough until you're able to actually just try to able to solve this particular solution. So anyway, so it looks like we've almost done with this for the most part. So in some cases now it's going to move on to level 3-5 plus, so we can able to try to deal with the forms of these specific more obstacles, like for instance the lava is about to rise, and also say applies with the forms of those sand blocks as well. So yeah, because no matter what though, for what I've noticed whenever I've seen the footage of that specific demo of Princess Peach Showtime demo, about the fact that it only plays 2 levels, which is one of them involves around the Sword Fighter Peach, and one of them, oh jeez, I'm not gonna give up on you, Mini Mario, because obviously I have no idea why I somehow placed the barrel on not nearly towards the edge of that specific semi-platform, but luckily we did somehow get our fast reaction time, so just in case we can able to, you know, try to complete the level like no sweat. So there we go. So yeah, as I was saying about the fact that there's only 2 playable levels in Journey Forms of Princess Peach Showtime demo, which there are Sword Fighter Peach as well as the forms of the Baking Peach. I'm not exactly sure what her specific costume's name was, because it's been quite some time since we've actually mentioned something related to Princess Peach Showtime since back in February. So yeah, at least as it turns out as well, about the fact that what I've noticed is about the fact that the actual developer for the sake of the forms of Princess Peach Showtime has just recently been revealed. Do you guys even remember certain games, usually for Nintendo partnered up with the forms of Good Feel, usually for some games like Kirby's Epic Yarn, as well as Wario Land Shake It, or Wario Land The Shake Dimension for those of you who lived in the European countries, and same applies with the forms of Yoshi's Woolly World, and as well as the forms of one of those segments in Mario Luigi Dream Team with all these particular giant battles, specifically giant Luigi battles, and that could be also applies to the forms of Poochie and Yoshi's Woolly World for the 3DS, and as well as the forms of Yoshi's Crafted World, and finally, most notably, Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn. As it turns out, Good Feel was actually part of the development for the sake of the forms of Princess Peach Showtime. So, yeah, it's actually kind of a cool thing to able to know about the fact that, I think relatively speaking though, no wonder why, about the fact that Princess Peach Showtime is actually going to be made part of the forms of run by Unreal Engine, just like the forms of how it does it for Yoshi's Crafted World. So, and same applies with the forms of Pikmin 4 as well, presumably speaking. So, either way, let's go ahead and tackle through the next Donkey Kong battle. I was originally trying to able to actually show you guys the forms of the bonus stage we can able to actually participating in for the sake of Fire Mountain Plus, but as you can tell, we've already maxed out live. So because of that though, I'm afraid to tell you for this point guys, I don't think it's possible we can able to actually show off every single bonus stages for the sake of the forms of trying to get some more one-ups, potentially speaking, because there might be a couple of times though about the fact that sometimes getting those bonus areas to be done might be felt to be randomized at times. So, which I know for a fact it's been a couple of hours since I actually have last played this for sure, but exponentially speaking though, as you can tell, that the entire arena itself for Donkey Kong Battle in Fire Mountain Plus is actually overall ridiculously easy this time around. Although you still need to worry about the forms of those sand blocks, of course. But apart from those side of things though, once you're trying to able to not get crushed then you should be okay. And of course, you have to watch out for lava, of course. So, either way, that pretty much does it for the likes of Fire Mountain Plus. So, it was actually self-explanatory, kind of thinking about it. But then exponentially speaking, though, again, we will be back for this particular world again for specifically time attack mode, as you probably already expect. I don't suppose if you noticed, but unfortunately though, I felt a little bit slightly sick recently, because relatively speaking though, there are a couple of times when my stomach just keeps on getting some very weird reactions recently. Well, I'm still fine as it is, but it's just about the fact that sometimes, here's one of those examples I just realized, about the fact that I somehow managed to try out one of those weird cereal combinations, which is specifically, Cookie Crisp and say plus with the forms of Shreddies as well, and they taste alright, but it's just about the fact that I think my stomach is actually gonna get this little weird aftermath for this particular reaction for that taste combination. So I'm not exactly sure how do I feel about it this way. I mean, generally speaking though, I'm still fine as it is. So anyways though, and speaking of which though, when it comes to Princess Peach Showtime, about the fact that we've only got about exactly 12 days left until specifically that game's going to be releasing. So because of that, still I'm very excited for it, even though especially noticeable I was originally able to try out the demo for the game, but obviously I'm going to have to wait for that until when that particular game comes out. And of course, just like the forms of how it does on most Nintendo Switch games nowadays, is that there's no amiibo functionality, which I guess that makes it up for it, because obviously no matter what though, the amiibo releases is pretty much done. Like, as a result, after that particular release of Sora amiibo, from the likes of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, something tells me after that particular amiibo did release, I'm pretty sure the amiibo functionality for most of those games are pretty much done. So, yeah, I can totally see why about the fact that things has to be moved on, well, exponentially for now on, because relatively speaking, we still have no idea what's next for Nintendo at this point. So, well, apart from the fact that, relatively speaking of what I've heard, that they'll bring most of those ports, remasters, you name it, just in case for the final stretch for the Nintendo Switch life cycle. So, anyways though, so let's just go ahead and move on to Merry Mini Land, and as you can tell, the actual setting of this particular world is actually at nighttime, whilst unlike the original version of this world, that it does manage to take place in daytime. So it makes sense about the fact that it's able to actually get ourselves the different time of day. So relatively speaking though, and as you can see, oh jeez, that was close. Thankfully, those Shy Guys does not destroy that particular Mini Mario when they float in midair from that particular propeller flower or anything else like that. So, at the very least, we'll be safe from now on, especially because I will admit though, when I first got to this world, whenever I first time I played the game, there was that one in particular level that I want to point things out that it does give me a lot of trouble sometimes, which you see what I mean if we get to that particular level, which, either way, that's always saying something. So, anyways, there's also another thing I want to address something about this as well, or there's another thing I want to mention, is that I do know for a fact that it's been almost a year ago since when, Sega Pico as the actual game system for children and stuff like that. Obviously, it did already became 30 years old in Japan, so as it turns out, in journey forms of later on in this year, in 2024, well, between both the UK version as well as the American version of the Sega Pico game system for children, as it turns out, is also going to be 30 years old until specifically later on in 2024. Because no matter what though, that again, we should probably save that particular topic once we get to the forms of sometime in September or November, depending on the forms of specific stimulations. So, and it's also worth noting for is that one of those games in particular, well actually not only one of those games, but two specific games that is involved around Sonic or Tails and all that stuff, and those are Sonic the Hedgehog's Game World and as well as the forms of Tails Music Maker. That basically both of those games will eventually going to become 30 years old until specifically later on in this year. Like, for example, Sonic the Hedgehog's game world will eventually going to be expected to become 30 years old until specifically once we get to August this year. So, specifically in Japan though, whilst North Americans didn't get the game until 1996. Whilst for whatever reason, the UK version never seemed able to get the game for some reason, which I'm not exactly sure why that seems to be the case. And as far as Tails and the Music Maker, as far as I'm concerned, at least specifically in Journey forms of sometime in North America specifically, that's basically the North American release of Tails and the Music Maker, which was also expected to be 30 years old until specifically in October in this year, in 2024, so we can pretty much expect April to maybe try to celebrate it, despite the fact that we haven't exactly thought about the forms of the Sega Pico as much compared to the forms of how it does it. You know, it's basically like the Sega Mega Drive or the Sega Genesis, except the fact that, well, obviously it's more dedicated to children, because obviously most children or kids out there will be a lot more entertained by that, so I have no idea why I'm somehow questioning that. So, but either way, let's just go ahead and go for the door, thank you. And that was a definition of a close call for that Mini Mario almost go straight to the spikes, because if he does manage to go through these spikes, obviously we have to do the entire stage again, and obviously, like I said before, unlike the original version, once the Mini Mario's been destroyed, Mini Mario goes like, Mamma Mia! And then, meanwhile, for the remake, that unfortunately Mario no longer says that line. So, kind of a missed unfortunate thing right there, but either way. This is the level I was talking about the fact that when I got to this world for the first time, since almost a month ago, and my goodness, this stage is really tricky sometimes, mainly because it involves around the AI of Mini Mario himself. Well, not only for that, but it's also about the fact that with these little muncher toys right there, that sometimes you can either decide able to go out of your way, whilst there are a couple of times though they will easily, miraculously try to able to mess around with the forms of my predictable pattern or somewhat. So, I know I have no idea why, that's for some reason about the fact I have no idea why I explain any of these things clearly, but believe me, there might be a couple of times that I might easily get screwed up at one point, and it gets worse until whenever we get to time attack mode, which then again, we'll save time attack mode for last, because obviously about the fact it brings us, you know what I mean, the ultimate challenge ahead. So, anyways, let's activate the red switch, so just in case we do need to let Mini Mario go after this blue present. But here's the thing though, we also need to be very careful of this bit right here. Ah, dang it! And you see what I mean about the fact that with this Mini Mario AI behavior, so this means we have to go all the way back. So, yeah, sometimes I will admit though, this level's also kind of feels a bit slower, for what I've noticed, because you always have to keep on waiting to able to actually just to go bypassing through the forms of not only for those specific monsters right there, but it's also about the fact that you always have to keep an eye on Mini Mario at all times, because potentially speaking though, it's about the fact that again, whenever I first got to this level right here, I've lost so many extra lives on this specific stage alone, which eventually at some points, that's what I mean about the fact that the game starts to get a little bit more difficult later on, so which might be especially noticeable about the fact that once we get to World 6+, oh boy, you're never gonna believe it. So, anyways, let's go ahead and grab this blue present, and before we finish off the level from here, we need to activate the blue switch, so just in case we can able to go through there, and there we go. It honestly did took me about 2 tries on this level though. I was expecting for the first attempt, but due to the faults of the specific Mini Mario AI, so that means about the fact that we somehow lost one of the lives so far in one of the plus worlds, so kind of unfortunate though, but regardless of such though, at least I'm still gonna be perfectly fine in the process. So, anyways, let's go ahead and move on to the next level right here, which appears to be level 4-6+. Now, this level right here also I also have struggles with it at first glance. But as it turns out, it's about the fact that you have to use this particular trash can thing right here. But first things first though, let me just go ahead and grab this yellow present first. And able to actually warp onto the warp block in the process. And carry this particular trash can right onto the other side of that particular warp block. And able to actually activate Mini Mario so we can able to guide him all the way to the other side. And exponentially, we can able to actually grab that red present if I can just warp through here. And we're not done with this yet though, because obviously once we guide Mini Mario all the way up here, then obviously we do need to drop down at points and make sure you don't let Mini Mario follow you. So exponentially we can able to get ourselves our glorious blue present. So yeah, let me know in the comments down below for the question of the day. What specific Mario game you did somehow play on a Happy Mario 10 day? Because I'd like to hear your thoughts. Because obviously no matter what though, currently we are still playing through Mario vs Donkey Kong, which is a good coincidence to able to play a Mario game on the Happy Mario 10 day. Because no matter what though, I seriously still adore Mario games so much. Well, some exceptions here and there, which some of them are actually very lackluster, like for instance with Mario Party the Top 100, alongside with the forms of Mario Party Advance, which obviously speak for itself. So anyway, so while on the subject for this point though, let me just go ahead and show off this particular bonus stage right here, despite the fact that it does manage to take place in, well, Fire Mountain Plus, but regardless of such though, it's kind of unfortunate about the fact that I was attempting to try to able to actually just to see the bonus stage in Journey forms of Merry Miniland Plus, but unfortunately though, I was not thinking straight. So obviously still utilizing the forms of those sand blocks right there, and there we go. So obviously we've now back to maximum of 99 lives, so that should be all good to go. So anyways, let's go ahead and take on Donkey Kong in Journey forms of the Merry Miniland Plus. Now, as far as I'm aware, certain Donkey Kong boss fights are going to get a lot more difficult, mainly with the forms of the Plus variant of the forms of Merry Miniland, because as you can see, certain flower propellers are now on the forms of these obscure placements, because as far as you can definitely tell, they're trying to defend Donkey Kong at all times, depending on what buttons or switches that he decides to activate. And again, if you made one wrong move, specifically if you get hit by the forms of those spiky barrels, then obviously you can just try and able to select retry, and still, thankfully though, there's no punishment, or specifically penalties for that part, because potentially speaking though, that's as far as I can try and able to describe about the forms of this boss fight alone, so. But either way, I would have liked able to explain something else for this point today, but honestly guys, that like I said before, it's probably best if we let Maxie will mention more about it, if he goes back onto Sonic the Hedgehog 2006 by tackling through Silver Story next, and exponentially speaking though, also applies for Coco Bandicoot as well, so just in case we can able to exponentially try to able to mention about more discussions later down the road. So yeah, I get the strong sense of feeling for that particular point worth noting for. So oh dang it, I wasn't paying attention, and in fact I was so close for that too, to able to actually finish him off in the process. So oh well, we'll just try again I suppose, and hopefully we should be able to try to able to beat, well, Donkey Kong in the process for this point. So but yeah, it seems pretty cool about the fact that, well, it looks like about the fact that Goodfeel is now a developer for the sake of Princess Peach Showtime. So pretty cool I suppose, especially concerning for the fact that the last time they actually did develop something for the Nintendo game was obviously, like I mentioned earlier, Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn, just because no matter what though, despite the fact that that particular game is basically a port to a Wii game, because despite the fact that it does have some extra amount of content that was not addressed on the forms of the original Wii version, so yeah, that maybe seems to be the case. So but either way, so also, I just want to classify for something about this as well, is about the fact that yes, CapKing74 is still back on track for the uploading schedules department recently, and what I've noticed right from the start though, is that recently he did somehow receive 135 subscribers recently, so yeah, congratulations to CapKing74 by the way. So just to ensure for the fact that we can able to actually just to like, you know, try to celebrate. Oh jeez, that was so close. Oh, come on. Ah, dang it all. Oh, this might take a bit while, especially because sometimes, I will admit though right away, once we get to the last hit, sometimes the actual timing aspect can be felt a bit unpredictable. But I will still say about the fact that the hardest boss fight, to me anyway though, is going to be coming up, until specifically once we get to next weekend, you know exactly what I'm about to say, because of the forms of the specific, hazards that we need to worry about, and on top of that, if you just somehow get hit once, obviously though, you're not gonna get a perfect rank like this. So, but also I just found out something is about the fact that it doesn't really matter what how many mini Marios you do manage to bring in on the actual toy box. What I found out is that if you then manage to able to try to deal with, like, for example, if you're trying to able to go into one of those mini Mario levels, and what I've noticed that someone actually did this, that basically if you're trying to able to complete the mini Mario level on the normal worlds, if you manage to bring only one mini Mario in the actual toy box, exponentially you don't able to actually get a perfect gold star ranking or anything else like that. But once you're able to actually go into the forms of the Donkey Kong boss fight, something tells me about the fact that if you do manage to able to able to do a one-hit challenge against Donkey Kong, as it turns out, you can able to actually get the gold star from that way. So I was not expecting that. Well, mind you, because I'm pretty much used to with the Game Boy Advance original version, still, but hey, at least we did somehow finally manage to kick Donkey Kong's butt again, and exponentially, that pretty much does it for Mini Land Plus. So, although then again, we will be back for that world for time attack's sake, until for later, so... And it looks like we're now on to the halfway point in terms of the Plus worlds. So, the next world we're going to be jump right into is World 5 Plus, which appears to be Spooky House Plus. So, with that being said, folks, is that we get the endings off this point right here. So join me next time for more Let's Play of Mario vs. Donkey Kong Remake for the Nintendo Switch. Is that we're going to be going into World 5 Plus, which appears to be Spooky House Plus. So, things gets a little bit more interesting from here. So, yeah, I'll see you guys until our next weekend. Later, fellas.